Henry Fonda and Jean Gabin both had a spectacular stillness about them, that they didn't add anything to the script except the truth of their soul. They never, ever made anything up. But on the other hand, they never denied anything. So what you saw playing over a very, very still face was the inner working of the soul, not something that they put in, but something that in their great generosity they allowed to come out.
Mm-hmm. When you say they never denied anything, you mean that they never held back any of their emotions?
Yes, they didn't hold back their emotion, but neither did they invest in emotion, which is the same thing if you look at fighters, which is why I think fighters, the faces of fighters and soldiers and cops and firemen, anybody who deals with tragedy on a daily basis, they have all the emotion burnt out of them.
Yeah.
So what you see is some core humanity.
Yeah. And in his case, in Ejiofor's case, was there a quality that was unique to him that you saw that fit the role?
He's a great actor.
Yeah.
He's just a great actor, and he has such a beautiful face. He looks like a fighter.
Yeah. Does it sound accurate to you to say that the movie describes your feelings in relation to the movie industry?
Listen, I don't got anything against the movie industry.
Yeah.
It's like the kid says. Now. Well, it's like the kids say. It's not school that I hate; it's the principle of the thing. So, the movie industry is responsible for us sitting here, and it's responsible for that movie. There are a lot of blaggards in the movie industry, and as there are in any industry. So the point is not to be one, or to be one as little as possible.
So what is it that's creating the situation that everyone seems to be bothered by in the movie industry now, but that is a little bit difficult to name?
Well, somebody said all of us Americans have two businesses, our own business and show business. And so one of our prerogatives as Americans is we get to bitch about the movie industry.
Right. But what are we bitching about?
Well, we're saying that, what are we saying? When we bitch about it, we're saying, I hate them, the films are so contentless, and they're pandered to the least emotion, at least common denominator, and they all imitate each other, and the stars are paid too much, and da-da-da. It's the same thing we say about baseball, it's the same thing we say about our politicians.
But do you think it's become more exaggerated in the last 20 years, maybe?
No, I don't think so. And also, I don't know that films are any worse than they used to be. There's some really spectacular films, and there's a lot of program material. If you look back, we remembered 5 or 10 great films from our youth in years when they made 2,500 films,
Right. Yeah. And so, but with this movie, does that seem accurate to you that there is, because as you're watching it, it does feel like there's a parallel between, the industry of the spectacle, and in this case, it's the spectacle of watching extreme sports on TV.
Yeah, well, look at this. There's nothing that you can't turn into entertainment. Right. I mean, we may remember that Moses went up the mountain. Well, he was actually talking to God. The Jews down below were making graven idols and, and doing the hokey pokey.
Yeah. So this movie is an expression of purity.
Well, it's a hero myth. It's a fight film, which is a very specific genre, and it's very close to the samurai film. And it's a story about the lonely man who has to take his devotion into a very, very messy world. I think that's what all fight films are about.
Such as, what does it link to in the past for you?
I'm sorry?
What does it link to in the past, in cinema's past?
Well, I think very much to the original Night in the City, Jules Dassin movie, Night in the City, certainly to the setup. The great Robert Ryan film, To Champion, to the Harder They Fall with Humphrey Bogart, to Cinderella Man, to $1 Million Baby. These are all fight films.
And to movies that really address the divide between the purity of just being in it for the fight versus the money part, the spectacle part.
Yeah, that's right. And as such, they're very, very different than an action film or a martial arts film, which are genres unto themselves.
Yeah.
But the fight film is always about the lonely fighter having who could do well in the ring, but he's got to deal with the world outside the ring. Well, I don't think so. I mean, I just saw for the first time, I just saw Michael Clayton last night, which I think is a rather brilliant film, and it's about the same thing. It's about the lonely guy trying to achieve purity. There's a great thing at the beginning of The Great McGinty, where there's a voiceover, and the guy reading the voiceover says it's a story about two men. One man did wrong all of his own life and had a moment of goodness, and one man did good all of his own life and had a moment of sin. They both had to leave town. And for any of you guys who don't know this spectacular movie, Preston Sturges film, The Great
His first
Detective.
movie, yeah.
Yeah, Brian Donlevy. I've been fortunate to live in a world of these fighters for a few years, and I kind of got fascinated both by the sport of jiu-jitsu and by the people who were training in this one academy, and the way that their lives interacted and spread out across Los Angeles. So that's the movie I wanted to make.
And you've trained with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel that changed you?
Well, it made me fitter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you look good. That's
Thanks.
good. Yeah, sure.
So
Thank you.
so.
I gotta,
And there are a lot of, just like yoga, there are a lot of lessons, from studying a physical discipline that one could extrapolate.
Yeah.
For example, don't use your force if you don't have to. Don't fight if you don't have to. Don't oppose strength to strength. Control yourself when you control the other guy. If you got two guys in a ring, one of them weighs 100 pounds and the other weighs 200 pounds. If you can make the light guy can make the 200-pound guy exhaust himself, then what good is his weight advantage? If the light guy has more knowledge, then what good is the other guy's strength? If you can put him in a position where he can't use his strength, then what good is his strength? Well, he's great. This is my second movie I did with Robert. He, of course, won the Oscar this year for There Will Be Blood, and he shot Michael Clayton last year, and the year before that he shot Syriana and
Good Night and Good Luck.
and Good Luck, and he's just a spectacular DP, and I learned so much from him, because I'll say, oh, here's what I think, and I'll say, ooh, what about if we did it this way? And it's always a better idea than mine. I think several of them. I resisted it for a long time. I thought 133 was the God-given format. You know what that is? The 133 is basically the golden mean. It's more or less what a television
square.
looks like.
Yeah.
It's a relationship of 1 to 133, and the movies got wider. And this is CinemaScope, which is what? It's 2.0?
235 to 1.
235. So it's 1 to 235. And the reason I resisted going widescreen is when I was a kid. If you go up and, for example, you look at Bad Day at Black Rock's early CinemaScope movie, it opens up with a shot of a train. And they used to say the only thing in the world that CinemaScope is good for is shooting a train or a snake.
Yeah.
Because in the old days, when the CinemaScope first showed up, all the DP said, what do I know that exists in that format? Well, there's a train and there's a snake and there may be a third thing, but I don't know what it is. But if you look at the way that the people are shooting in CinemaScope today, you're never even aware that it's CinemaScope, and that's because they learned how to frame and light for CinemaScope. And the other thing I figured out is that CinemaScope wants to make you move the camera.
Why? How so?
Well, because the image has got to be fair. It's got to be fairly. The image is a little bit unbalanced. The thing about 133, which is close to 35, it's all 35 millimeter film, so a 35 millimeter lens is more or less, they say, the way that we perceive things in real life, right? That it wants to take in a close-up or a tight two-shot or a body from the knees up. Right, so that's a fairly natural way of, so you can look at that all day long. It's the way kids draw when they draw pictures, and supposedly the way we dream. But CinemaScope is unbalanced. It's not related to the way that we perceive life. So that the DPs and the directors have to figure out a way to and they have, to make CinemaScope natural. And one of the ways is by moving the camera, so that CinemaScope becomes much more effective with the growth of the Steadicam.
I think that there are many more lenses available now than there were when they first started. They were very limited in the number of lenses that they could use.
Yeah.
Just to orient the audience a little bit, with the shape that you're probably most used to seeing is 1.85
Right.
to 1, which is, rectangular, but not quite as wide as scope. But do you enjoy? Do you do you enjoy the shape now? Would you want to go
Oh, yeah,
back?
no, I love it.
Yeah.
If Robert Elsbert likes it, I like it. And I love it. It makes you think a little bit inventively. It also incites you to use a little bit of depth, so that you're looking at the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. Or if you're looking at a close-up, the question is what's happening on the rest of the screen, because you don't want to put the close-up right in the middle of a CinemaScope screen. So you want to, they say, you short side the image, so there's a lot more on one side than the other side. So what you're really doing is you're setting up like you're setting up what do you call it? A Fibonacci series.
A what?
A Fibonacci numbers are like 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 1 equals 3, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus, right? So that you're adding, and that's a shape which does occur in nature, and we're taught that it's the shape of the way a chambered nautilus grows, or the way that a lot of the trees grow, and it occurs all through. In fact, there's something called the Fibonacci Society that is dedicated to discovering these Fibonacci series in nature. So you could say that what you're looking at is a golden mean here for the close-up, plus another golden mean set on its side over there for everything that's not the close-up.
You staged action scenes before in Spartan.
Is anybody still awake? It's the most boring.
Yeah, you know.
You know, I mean, I hear my children's voice, which I'm sure is just in your head because you're more polite than they, and what they say is, "Oh, Dad, please."
Yeah. Not more about the Fibonacci. So.
Yeah, really, enough already. Well, these are rather specific form of action sequences. They're fight sequences. And so it's different than, crashing cars into cardboard boxes. And I was very fortunate, not only in Robert Ellsworth, but in my teacher, Renato Magno, who produced and choreographed all the fight sequences, and appears in the fight sequence with Rico Chaparelli. He's the guy wearing the white gi who wins the first fight. So he's the guy who choreographed all of the fight sequences. So I'm taken in by him every time. I'm kind of hard pressed to remember the guys are just pretending, and they're fighters. They're great fighters, actual fighters who hadn't done much acting before. I enjoyed watching the end of this. I was stuck back over there with Ricky Jay watching the end of it. Generally not, because all I see as a director is the things that I did wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that's all any director sees.
Yeah. And do you like going back and watching your older films? Or probably
No,
not.
I don't.
Yeah.
That's all I think about. That's all the movie is an outline. Everything else the actors are going to do it, or the set designer is going to do it, or the cameraman or woman's going to do it. That's all the movie is an outline. So I do hundreds of pages of outline, trying to get the outline down to the point where I say, somebody else might know better, but I don't know anymore. It's best I can do. And so then you can go and write the movie in an afternoon. That's all it is. And that's the only good thing about a pitch meeting. Anybody doesn't know what a pitch meeting is? A pitch meeting is when you go to this person who supposedly has the power to greenlight a movie in Hollywood, and you pitch the movie to them, and you've got about 8 seconds, because after 8 seconds, their eyes glaze over and you're done. So you have to be able to tell them the whole story of the movie in 8 seconds. And so the terrible thing about that is it's a lot of pressure, but the good thing is if you can tell the story of the movie in 8 seconds or in 2 minutes, you can probably make a pretty good movie. But if you get it halfway into the pitch meeting and you say, and then blah, 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 I'll tell you later, the pitch meeting's over, and so's the movie.
Does it become a useful exercise, actually, for you?
No, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.